Well, happy Tuesday, July 22nd. Hope you guys are all doing great and that your week is off to a really good start. I know mine is. I had a great time in Hollywood at the Hard Faith Film Festival. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that film festival, but I encourage you guys to check it out and learn more about it. Spencer Fulmer and his beautiful wife, McKenna, run that, started it and created it. And it was interesting because Fulmer, I had a very good friend at my old church um, who was a part of the choir and just one of those icons of our church. His name was Fulmer Chapman, so I always think Fulmer, but Spencer Fulmer. Spencer Fulmer shared a little bit about why he started the Hard Faith Film Festival, and I actually really appreciated hearing that. So I'd encourage you to check it out. It's he was sharing through his testimony. He came to faith as an adult, and he felt like he wasn't necessarily seeing stories that reflected his experience and a sense of some of the more challenging and kind of unpretty things that he experienced in his life and in his journey to faith. And so those are the stories he wanted to start telling. And then he felt like encouraging and coming alongside of other filmmakers who also felt led to tell those stories that are considered a little bit edgier for it could be a number of different reasons as to why it's quote unquote hard faith. But it's very personal to him, and it was driven by something very personal. And so I just encourage you to get to know Hard Faith Film Festival. They're on Facebook and Instagram, and just learn more about the organization. They already have their dates for next year. It takes place in LA, and the submissions for films is already open. So if you have a finished film that you feel like may fit into that specific sort of category of a little bit harder, a little bit edgier, or it could just be that the topics are topics that aren't often dealt with within the church or within faith. Look into doing a submission through their website. And like I said, go to their website, Facebook page, Instagram. You'll find out more about them and how to do all of that. One of the things I loved about the festival was there was a screenplay competition. And so I met a lot of writers. So if some of you guys are writers and you have scripts, or even something that isn't yet a full script, but maybe is an idea or an outline at this point, and again, you feel like it's something that fits that niche, then check it out. A lot of wonderful writers, and they have they have awards for the screenplays. And then we also had a pitch fest, and there were 6 of us on the panel. All of us gave feedback. We had someone who's the head of development. We had 2 producers who've been in the industry a long time, myself, someone who comes on the producing distribution side. And so it was, I think, really a great opportunity for those producers and directors who were pitching their potential projects. So it's a great festival, and so I just want to encourage you guys. Hi, Allie. Oh, thank you so much. And it's good to see you. I hope you and your brother are doing good. Jordan, not Jared, but Jordan. And I was telling someone about your film, Allie, and just again, Ali and her brother have created a really, really wonderful short film that they have the thoughts of it going broader and going to a feature length. But I'm just so proud of what they've done and the work they've done. And we're always talking about the value of creating your own content and creating the kinds of things, stories, and the kinds of content that you want to see or that you just have in your heart, stories you want to tell. And so theirs is pretty unique, and they are uniquely gifted to tell that specific story. So I'm excited for you, Ali, and what you guys are doing. Hi, Sky from Australia. It's good to see you, and thanks for sending your tapes, by the way. And you did a beautiful job. Hi, Don. Good to see you. Howdy. Elizabeth, Nashville. Oh, you're just Nashville for the week. Are you going to content? I wonder if you're there for content. Hi, Adam. Thank you so much. Hi, Carolyn from Seattle, and Valerie. Hi, Valerie. Hope your kids are doing good. Hi, Caitlin. Good to see your cute face. Hi, Verna from Florida. It's this time of year I struggle to want to go to Florida because it's a little humid, but I'm sure it's beautiful. And all of you Floridians, I think, are used to that humidity. So it's probably nothing to you. I'm just kind of a wimp because I've always been West Coast. So my body never learned to deal with humidity. I wasn't meant for humidity. At least not so far. Hi, Jim. Hi, Angela. Hi, you guys. So I saw Diego said his question was, what would be considered edgy within the industry? So specifically within the faith storytelling world, edgy in the context of like the Hard Faith Film Festival and Hard Faith kind of section. Sometimes it's stories that have a little more violence. So there's certain stories that to tell them authentically, the environments in which the story takes place are just naturally more violent and naturally grittier and potentially darker. And so that could be one reason. It could be a subject matter that's a more difficult subject matter to tackle. And that could be subject matters that are tackled in faith storytelling already, sex trafficking, sex abuse, abortion. I mean, those are challenging topics, and there are various ways to dive into those sorts of subjects that are a little more difficult to discuss and talk about. And I would say what the approach from like a quote unquote hard faith approach would probably be a little less careful, I guess, or a decision that's made that they're not necessarily going to try to appeal to everyone, but sometimes it's because the heart is for reaching specific people who would understand or relate to a more maybe a more gritty portrayal of some of those subjects that sometimes can kind of be glossed over and sort of tied up real pretty. And those subject matters can be dealt with in a way that kind of makes it easier for the audience to hear it or deal with it. And as I understand it, and I'm going to have Spencer on one of these weeks so he can talk about it. But as I understand it, his feeling is they don't want to gloss it. They don't when you're telling those kinds of stories, you don't want to gloss it. You want to really give it as much authenticity, even if that authenticity takes it to a place that is a little less comfortable or a little less mainstream. But it's hard faith. So faith is still a big component of that. So we're not talking about telling gritty for gritty's sake or violence for violence sake. It's still the goal is still telling stories of faith. But not everyone's life is the same. And their experiences and what they relate to and what they understand are different. And so I think the goal is they're just trying to tell stories for that portion of the audience that maybe feels like sometimes the stories aren't quite as realistic as to what they understand or what they experience. So Gigi, yeah, more raw. Raw's another term you could use for it. Yeah, absolutely. And because they're not necessarily saying, oh, we need to make this film for the broadest audience possible, they don't compromise on certain things. Sometimes if you're trying to go for a broad audience, you can find yourself compromising in certain areas so as to not alienate a portion of the audience or make them feel uncomfortable. And so this is more of we're not trying to please everyone. We want to be authentic and true to this specific style of storytelling for this specific audience who needs those kinds of stories that the other stories may not reach because they may not see themselves in those stories. They may not see a version of their experience or their redemption or that kind of, the whole mindset of, you don't know what I've done. If God knew everything I've done, there's no way you could forgive me. Like God could never forgive me for everything I've done or everything I've been through or everything I've seen. And so in order to reinforce to someone who has that mindset that God can redeem anyone, God wants to redeem everyone, regardless of your past, regardless of what you've been through, regardless of what you've done. He wants a relationship with you. But in order to demonstrate that and communicate that to someone whose past has been very, very difficult or very intense or very not mainstream or very hard or edgy or raw or any of the words you want to use, we have to tell stories where they can see themselves. They can see God's redemption in someone that looks and feels like them, so that they understand it. Let's see. Let me go back a little bit. Hi, Casey. It was really good to see you too. It was really nice. And chime in, Casey, if I'm not quite representing it right. Casey Morlett was at the Hard Faith Film Festival as well. And so feel free to chime in if you feel like I'm missing the boat on how I'm describing it. But it was great to see you. And Deidre from Dallas, also with humidity. I love it. Well, at least your hair doesn't get all dried out. It might frizz depending on what style of hair you have, but that's always something. I'm just grateful for a new day and for, God's provision and breath in our lungs. And don't want to take that for granted because that's a gift. Every day is a gift for sure. Let's see. Verna and Susan, you're so sweet. That's very nice of you. Let's see. Jenny. Hi, Suzanne. You made it. I love it. Valerie. Evelyn did one of those movies last fall. It's a faith-based, but definitely not in a pretty package. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it too, that it isn't, it's stories where things aren't necessarily all tied up. perfectly and solved completely. So yeah, that's one way to put it. Maggie, yes, I so appreciate bringing authenticity to hard subjects. Life isn't easy and hard things are hard. Depicting the reality of those situations has value. I agree with you. I agree with you, Maggie. I think that I think sometimes and probably more in the past than currently, because the younger generation, the new generations coming up behind my generation, I think my generation had a tendency to want to tidy things up and want to um, maybe paint a picture of what we wanted things to be, and maybe not necessarily dealing with things the way they are, um, from a standpoint of faith storytelling. But early on in faith storytelling and Christian movies, there was a movie called The Cross and the Switchblade. I don't know if any of you guys remember that. And it dealt with gangs and gangs in the heart of New York City, and Wilkerson's church that became right in the heart at Madison Square Gardens. I think he ended up doing his church there, and it dealt with him kind of going in right into the middle of what was gritty and hard and violent, and coming up against real struggles and real opposition, like physical danger and threats to his life. And yet he felt called to be in the heart of New York City. And one by one saw conversion, saw redemption, saw salvation. And that church continued to grow into a huge movement a huge body of believers in the heart of New York City. And that movie is from, I think, maybe the 70s. The Cross and the Switchblade. And that for its time, that would have been considered a hard faith story for sure. I did a movie with my colleagues, fellow producers, called Trade of Innocence, and that was the child sex trafficking in Thailand. Oh no, we shot in Thailand. It was supposed to be shooting it for Cambodia. And hard subject, hard to show that visually. It was uncomfortable. That could be considered a hard faith story. And that was a challenge, because we were trying to make a movie that could commercially make its money back and commercially have an impact. And you want to, for it to have the broadest impact, you wanted it to get the broadest audience, but you need to tell that story with realism. And it's a hard, uncomfortable story to tell. It's a hard subject to get into and to tackle and to treat with respect and an understanding for how tragic and how difficult that whole human trafficking, especially child human trafficking, is. And so those two things were often at odds as we were producing that, which is be entertaining, be appealing to the broadest audience possible, so that it will reach people, so that they'll get the message, so that they will hopefully feel motivated to do something and to join in on the efforts, but also be true to the subject matter and the darkness of the subject matter and the difficulty of telling those stories. So I think that that's a challenge for anybody who wants to tell hard stories or raw stories. And that includes those who are feeling especially called to make hard faith stories. Hi, Austin. Good to see you. Hi, buddy. Let's see. Maggie, you don't know what I've done. Yes. No one is too far gone. And it's true. And it's kind of what Spencer was saying led him to even start that, was just for those people who just feel like they're too far gone and God can't redeem them, and that they've just gone too far down the rabbit hole and can't be pulled out. And I totally get it. If we don't show those kinds of stories and that kind of redemption, they may not ever see themselves and understand that they are worth redemption, that they can be redeemed and saved. So yeah, I think it's important what they're doing. Ashley, I'm asking on behalf of Ivy. If a free roll doesn't have an arc or a turn, is it still worth doing for the reel? How do you discern which free jobs are actually valuable? Okay, good question. Let me answer that a couple of different ways. First of all, if you don't have footage at all, then footage is footage. It will be valuable. If you, or Ivy in this case, can give a strong performance and end up with a couple of really good scenes, even one good scene out of the project where her performance is highlighted and she's able to show off what she's able to do, then that alone could be worth it. Because nowadays, especially, footage for a reel, having a reel is vitally important. And so I do think there's value in doing unpaid work if you can end up with a piece of quality footage for your reel. And I kind of liken it to, there are people who are paying to go have scenes produced so they can put them on their reel. They're actually paying money. In this case, you're not paying, you're just not getting paid. Now, the caveat for that, though, is you have to know the filmmakers and have a sense of the quality that will come out of that project. The hope would be that you feel strongly enough about the filmmakers that what you will end up with is the type of quality that you can actually use on your reel. And it's possible sometimes when you're doing a free job, which means there's little or no budget, it really comes down to the filmmakers. And are they quality? Do they know what they're doing? There's no sin, there's no negative in not having money to produce a project that you really want to produce, and to kind of be upfront with people and say, hey, we want to create this, but we don't have the budget. So for that reason, we're not able to pay anyone. And then everyone has a choice whether to do that or not. But those filmmakers, how they're going to shoot it, are they qualified? Do they know what they're doing? Is the script good? Is the role good? Does it have at least one good scene that's going to make it worth it, to that you could put it on your reel? Then I would say, yes, it's probably worth it. If the answer to all of those questions I just asked is yes, then I would say, yeah, it probably is worth it. If the character, as you mentioned, doesn't have an arc or a turn, we don't always see the full arc of everybody who has a speaking line in a movie. Sometimes it's someone that's brought in, a character that's brought in for one good scene, and maybe they're in the scene with the actor who the story's really about. So I'll use an example of a movie I did where it was a cancer journey for the lead character. It was a lead female character, and the story was really her and her husband's journey as she dealt with cancer. But there was a great scene where, when she's having chemo, one of her chemo sessions, a character, she ends up in a very meaningful conversation with a character that we actually never see again. So that character would be considered a day player. We don't know anything more about them. We don't have an arc. We don't have anything more than one scene, but that one scene is good. So in that one scene, that actor working opposite the lead has some meat and is able to really show performance and excellence. And so, with that being the case, something like that is very worth it, even though we never see the character again, or we don't know their backstory or what happens to them, after that one scene. If it's a throwaway, well, there are no throwaway scenes. Every scene, every line is in there on purpose and serves a purpose. So it all has value. Now, whether it's going to help your reel a whole lot, that I don't know. But the last thing I think I'll say is, if it's good filmmakers, it's the opportunity to be on set. It's the opportunity to learn, be in the element. And if you're with a group of people who are quality people and they know what they're doing, then again, I think there's value in that. I think, okay, well, what would you do with that time otherwise that is more valuable or more helpful than being on set and learning and observing and doing what you can? Now, if by doing it and working for free on a role that may not give you, a great scene for your reel, or something usable on that front, if that means you're taking a day off of work and you're going to lose out on that financially, or she's missing something at school, or some big event or something, to where there's a loss as a result of doing the project, then that's a different story. You have to weigh that out. But I think any time on set can be good when you're at the point where you're still growing your resume, you're still growing your reel. I think there's value in that. There's a point at which, when you've worked enough and done enough, that it's probably time to say, hey, I don't need to take and work for free anymore, because I have a full reel, I have lots of credits. And so at this point forward, I need, I can't take anything unpaid. And that's completely fine. And, you absolutely can do that, and completely respectable. But when you're building and when you're growing, I would say it's probably an opportunity, provided that the content is good, the script, that the filmmakers know what they're doing and quality, and that the environment of the shoot will be something from which you can learn something and grow and use that. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Hi, Richard. Let's see. Hi, Cassandra. Austin. I love that you said that the humidity doesn't. That made me laugh. Times Square. Yeah, Gigi. Times Square. Oh, thanks, Casey. So if you guys want to know more, Casey Morlett in the comments, put their website down, and or a link you can look up if you guys want to learn more about that. Richard, I was a freshman in high school when crossing the Switchblade. Yep. I told you, it's our generation. Let's see. Hardfaith.org. Thanks, Casey. 1970. That's crazy. That is just crazy. Tina, you used to attend Times Square Church. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, Tina, you spent a lot of time in New York. That was your stomping ground. So, yeah, it's amazing to think that was all built from him just feeling like God called him in the middle of all that, and he if you guys haven't read the book Crossing the Switchblade or learned about the story behind Times Square Church and that ministry, I would encourage you to. It's pretty remarkable. Bonnie, did you see Father Stu? I haven't yet, although I have planned to several times and then get sidetracked, but it's something I actually really do want to see. And I've heard good things about it. Let's see. Deidre, what have you done in response to people who are offended by a hard-faced story you've been a part of? I have to say that I haven't really been a part of any that are subject matters that could potentially offend. The human trafficking, the sex trafficking stories, story that deals with abortion, the only ones that the abortion stories offend are those who don't want to hear about, who aren't pro-life, and they just don't want to talk about anything that has to do with, stories of redemption and healing in the context of that. So I don't worry about that so much. But I haven't really done stories that would potentially offend. Make people uncomfortable? Yes. Offend? No. But even so, having said that, I go through the same process that I think a lot of you guys go through when you're making decisions about the projects that you'll do as actors or producers or writers. And that is to really look at, to right on the surface, like, is this bumping up against any of the boundaries that I've set for myself? And I've set those boundaries according to what I feel like God's calling me to do. So are we bumping up against any of those boundaries, first of all? Second of all, if something is potentially offensive, let's look at that. Why is it offensive? Why, if it's something that has to do with violence, is the violence there just for the sake of being edgy? Well, then, yeah, I wouldn't choose to do that. That's not something I really want to watch or be a part of. And that's just me personally. I'm just not someone who enjoys watching or can watch a lot of violence. I'm the one doing this. So, and that's not a judgment on those of you who that isn't an issue for you. We're all different. But for me, I'd have to look at that and say, why is this here? Why is this important to the story? What difference is this going to make as far as how the story, it does it make it more effective? Is it help the story be told more effectively? And then of course you pray about it. You ask. For me, praying about it means asking that God would give me wisdom, insight, and ultimately peace. That's typically my biggest indication internally, is a sense of peace that I feel like the Holy Spirit is letting me know, like, this is okay. And if I've gone through that process, I've sought the count, if it's something where I'm really, really having to think hard about this, I'll have others who I care about, whose wisdom and spiritual insight I care about, and respect. I'll have them read it and give me their thoughts and their insights. Once I've done all of that, I actually can feel very confident about a choice I make to do something or not do something. I've turned down projects that I think people are like the filmmaker was surprised and almost offended that I turned it down, and I wasn't making a judgment on them at all. It's just, for me, I didn't have that peace. I didn't I didn't have that sense that it was my story to help tell. And so I didn't move forward with it. And so, we're all going through that process. But if you go through that process, then at least for me, I can stand firm and just give account of what the process I went through to make a decision about doing a project. This is the process I went through to make my decision. This is why I decided the way I did, and I have a peace about it. And it doesn't mean they have to, and it doesn't mean they won't judge me for it, but it does mean that I can be at peace because I hopefully sought the counsel and sought God's wisdom in making that decision. And once you do that, then you got to move on. We can't make everyone happy all the time. So as long as you can lay your head on the pillow at night and close your eyes and thank God for the day and for giving you whatever that wisdom was about that decision, then we have to move on. So that's my feeling. Let's see. Monica says, I love the movie Father Stu because the protagonist struggles with his own past while evangelizing convicts with humor. Yeah, I've heard really good things about it. So I think that's a great story to tell. Let's see, Beth. We need more mainstream movies with Christian principles. The 80s had so many shows with people praying, going to church, relying on faith. For example, Little House on the Prairie. Yeah, there were a lot of those. And, on one hand, you want to say it was kind of a different era and a simpler time. But I do think there's value in it. But I also think that that's part of why the faith storytelling, faith content and faith-based movies are getting a broader audience and getting broader distribution or getting out to a broader audience because they recognize there is a desire for that and a value in that for sure. Bye, Tina. You might have already left, but bye, Tina. Love you. Let's see. And I always heard that clips are better nowadays than a reel. So is it better to have a reel? Well, yeah, I mean, either way, you still need the footage, whether you want to put it in clips or you want to do it in a reel. I personally prefer reels, but I know that there are other casting directors who prefer clips. The reason I prefer reels is because I probably only have time to click on one thing. So if I go to your page and I'm trying to figure out, can this person act or are they the right fit for this role? I have time to click on one thing. I don't have time to click on 12 things and figure out which one was your best and try to figure out which one is which. I want to click on your reel and I want you to tell me which is your best material. And by creating a reel, you get control over that. You get control over what I see first. Okay. You do that by the material you choose to put in your reel and the order in which you put it within the reel. So that if I watch 20 seconds or 40 seconds or 2 minutes of your reel, you're going to determine what I see first and then subsequent after that. If I'm looking at a whole thing of just clips, I kind of have to first take the time to read the description and figure out which of these fits what I'm looking for, which may or may not be straightforward. And then I'm going to so say I'm doing a comedy and you've labeled your clips like comedic, whatever, comedic best friends. Okay, then I'm going to only click on one. And you better hope the one I click on is the one you like. Because you just have to hope that it's the one clip you really wanted me to see that you felt was your very best work. So that's why I like reels. It's true. We don't typically watch the whole reel straight through unless we have a compelling reason to. Sometimes that compelling reason can be because your performance is so compelling that we just keep watching. But 9 times out of 10, I do click ahead to see several of the pieces on your reel to get an understanding of what all you've put on your reel. But first and foremost, got to start with the strongest. So that's why I prefer reels. I don't want to hunt and peck. I don't want to just arbitrarily pick whatever scene. And what if that's not the scene that you're actually really most proud of, or that shows off your talent as an actor? And that can be comedic or dramatic. Okay. I want to see, are you a layered, interesting, nuanced actor, whether that's comedy or drama? And if you do a reel and your first scene happens to be dramatic and I'm doing a comedy, I'm still going to see, if it's good quality stuff, I'm still going to see a great performance. And then if I feel like I need to see specifically something comedic, I'll either look further into the reel, or then I may go to the clips to find a comedic clip. But I want you to tell me and show me what you feel is the best representation of you as an actor. So that's why I like reels. I realize I am just one opinion on that, and I may be the minority. I don't really know. I know Mark Fincannon likes clips, but that's my thinking behind. I see no reason not to have both. So that's what I don't really understand, having to choose one or the other. I don't really know why you would feel like you need to choose, but those are my thoughts. So, let's see. Don, even if it's a bad film, as long as you nail your role, use for your reel until you get more. I agree. I fully agree. Yep. And nothing like actually being on set to learn. And sometimes the learning is through some not so great experiences too. So we've all been on projects that we wouldn't want to repeat. And thankfully, I have very few. I could probably count on one hand in 31 years of people that I would say I don't want to work with them again. I've been extraordinarily fortunate to work with great people, and I am so thankful. And I recognize that that is a huge, huge blessing. But we do still have those times where, like, yeah, I don't need to work with them again. But I still learn. I learn every single time. I either learn something about me, I learn something about the process. I always learn something. So let's see. Rod, a very young Eric Estrada who played Punch on Chips was in Cross and Switchblade. He was. That's exactly right. A very young. Like, I think that was one of his first films, wasn't it? I think it might have been. So, let's see. Actress listening. Hi, Carla. You're in Southern California. I've heard good things about Tracker. Did it get picked up for another season? I know I'm reading I'm seeing all sorts of headlines about shows that are being canceled, and then others that are getting their pickups, which is good. Let's see. Shout out to Rudy. Yeah, you probably heard him, right? He was having a bout of the zoomies and came running in my office, ran around my desk, was running around my feet. So boys are going to be boys, I tell you, kids. Let's see. Rod. Oh, no reading, just watch the movie. Richard, I was a freshman at a Catholic high school, and the nun who taught us religion was very young, and she made us read Cross and the Switchblade, and then brought us all to the movies. Well, that's cool. That's a cool teacher in 1970 to be with it enough and progressive enough to take you to see the movie after reading the book. I love that. Okay, so I'm looking through. So far, I don't see any other questions, which is just fine, actually. I want to tell you, so I'm going to, by the end of this week, I'm going to give Diego my coaching openings and schedule for August, September. I can't even believe I'm saying that because I can't believe we're almost to August. I'm going to be out of town, going to Montana and also to Yellowstone the first week of August. So I'll probably have a sub in for one of those weeks, but other than that, I'll give my coaching schedule. I would love to spend time with you guys and be able to do some one-on-one, go through reels. I've been having a blast working on scenes with actors, and I've had some where I get to kind of push them to work on some characters that are a little different than they normally get to play and coloring outside of the lines a little bit. So that's been great. And that's definitely something that we can do during coaching time, which is to let's explore those sides of yourself that you feel like you can play, you feel like you want to explore, but you're not typically given the opportunity to do that. So yeah, let's find material and let's do that. Let's dive into that. And then of course, going through reels, going through headshots and talking through goals and strategies, of course, is certainly something we do all the time. So, and I'm happy to do it and I love it. So yeah, Dawn, whoop, whoop, Montana. Dawn, I'm going to reach out to you so that we can plan a time, schedule a time. We just cannot wait. Ben and I are going. Rudy is not. Rudy will be at home with a Rudy sitter. And he'll be happy because he's still going to get treats and walks and attention and love. So, he'll be just fine. So we'll have someone home here with him. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. So yes, we'll get the schedule out for August, September, and keep you informed as to kind of what's coming up. And until then, I think that's all I have for tonight, which is crazy because we've been going really long most weeks, but I love that. Let's see. Katie, if we book a session with you, how do we share real info ahead of time so we can look over it together? So you can send a link with your booking to Diego. He'll make sure it gets to me. Or you can send it to me. Either way, Diego can facilitate me getting a link to the materials that we want to review while we're together. And then we're doing it via Zoom. So no, don't send it to Bev. Okay, send it to Diego. Send it to Diego. He'll make sure I get it prior to our session. And a link, I usually look at your website, your Actors Access or Breakdown Express profile. I try to do that homework before we meet. And then we're doing it via Zoom. So I can screen share, and then we screen share and watch through and talk through whether it's a self-tape or a scene or a reel. We watch it together and work through it together. And if we're working on scenes in our session, I can also tape our sessions and our scenes so you can see your progress and see the work we did. And yeah, so there's a lot of great tools now that we can make use of for our time together. So for now, next week, yeah, I'm here next week. So I will look forward to seeing you then. I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and It's only Tuesday, so you still got plenty of time to make it a great week. If maybe it didn't start out that way, you got plenty of time to turn it around. And I appreciate you guys. And again, I just want to thank Spencer and his wife McKenna and the team at Hard Faith Film Festival, and just humbled and honored that you guys, decided to honor me with the award. And so thank you. I sincerely appreciate it. You are a huge encouragement to me, as are every single one of you guys. All of you guys are an encouragement to me. You make this business and the work that we do together a joy. And I really appreciate you. I appreciate doing this journey with you guys. So I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next Tuesday. Love you. Bye.